do what needs to be done. That's so inspiring, and it's something to live up to. It's an ideal, and I think these ideals are so important for young men to have heroes to look up to. That's so important. All right, guys, welcome back to the Men's Adventure Fiction Podcast. I'm here with Nathaniel Hummel. We're excited to bring you today's topic. It has been a blast. I know that the Discord has been fun, and talking to you guys on Instagram is fun. Comments here, this community is the best. So thank you, and I could not be more grateful for everyone who has become a new friend. Nathaniel, do you want to say hello and tell us the topic for tonight?
Yeah. Thanks for coming back to check it out. Another episode of the Men's Adventure Fiction Podcast. It has been a ton of fun, and it will continue to be a ton of fun. Just really happy to be here. The Discord is bussin'. Definitely hop in there. There's going to be a link in the show notes, link in the description. Check it out. There's some exciting things going on in the Discord, so maybe you want to get in there before it's too late.
I learned about some amazing books as well. Saying.
Me too.
It's pretty sweet.
Get in there. Get in the Discord. If you like what we're talking about, then you'll love the Discord. There's a lot of fun stuff. We talk about gear, staying fit for adventures, all you could need. Speaking of fit for adventures, that kind of segues right into the topic for today, which is going to be one-man armies. An absolute classic. I don't know if trope's the right word.
It works. I'll take it.
Kind of like a segment of men's adventure fiction where you got just an absolute monster of a human being. And he just gets business done. A little fuzzy on exact definition. I think he can have a little help every once in a while, but primarily he's just always killing it, right?
Yeah. A lot of this stuff is ambiguous and up in the air, so but it is, like you said, it's a trope. It's kind of a subgenre. Even you could even call it that. But yeah, you know it when you see it. It's those characters that are just, by themselves, the lone wolf going off and taking care of business. Gotta suspend your disbelief a little bit for some of them, right? We were talking about Rambo 3 a little bit before this.
Like everything they do is believable.
I believe it 100%. Rambo could take on a tank with his fists. It's a great subgenre. So much fun to kind of talk about, and that's what we're hoping to get into today. So make sure to tell us your favorite kind of lone wolf character, your one-man army that gets you fired up, gets you hyped. And that was definitely, the one-man army definitely has origins back to when you're playing as a kid, right? Like, whatever, some days you couldn't get a friend over, you couldn't get a sleepover going. So you just had to be the one-man army and just take on everybody by yourself. So I'm excited to talk about this. Do you want me to give the first character? Or no, go ahead.
You're on the money, dude. I don't know how many hours I spent out in the woods around my house with a stick or an airsoft gun fighting, like, at least 150 people in one afternoon. I mean, it's what you got to do.
Legendary battles before heading in for the PBJs, just absolutely murking 3,000 people eating a PBJ.
All in a day's work. That's what, but yeah, the plan is we're gonna trade one-man army characters. We're gonna do a little back and forth here. So Start us off, Luke. Let's see who you got.
The first one I'm going to talk about is one of my favorite characters. Actually, I think he is my favorite character of all time, and it's the Punisher from the comic series, and most particularly, I love his film and TV adaptation. Jon Bernthal as him, fantastic. Tom Jane, gonna be impossible to beat when we're talking about sentimentality and things like that. We mentioned this in the book ranking episodes, where it's like once these get tied to memories, really hard to beat. So even though Jon Bernthal might technically be the better Punisher, possibly, I love Tom Jane, and that's my character. Do you have any thoughts on the Punisher? What is your take on the Punisher?
I knew you were going to pick him because, to me, he is the quintessential one-man army. It's literally, it's pretty much his whole entire shtick.
It's his shtick, yeah. That's his thing.
He can't be beat. I haven't You told me to watch the Tom Jane Punisher. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
seen it yet, but I'm
Got to.
very excited. But John Bernthal's absolutely crushes it. Some of those fight scenes in that series are some of my favorite fight scenes of all time. Or even they introduce his character in the Daredevil TV
Mm-hmm.
show. I think it's season 2, and that fight scene in the prison,
Brutal.
crazy,
Yeah.
absolutely phenomenal. The stunt choreography there. They're another. We talked about it last week a little bit with or a few weeks ago with Tom Cruise doing his own stunts
Yeah.
and Keanu Reeves doing their own stunts. The way that they do the stunts and the one takes in those series, superb. But yeah,
It,
that's I could talk about John Bernthal and the Punisher all day. So go on.
the Punisher, I feel like he does own some of the best fight scenes on TV and film. The Russian fight from the Tom Jane one. I know you haven't seen the movie. Have you seen that fight by chance at all, or is
I
it a
don't think
clip
I
from it?
have.
Okay, that's gonna be a treat when you see that. I love that fight. It might be my favorite fight in a movie. It's so fun and kind of outrageous a little bit, and it goes on for so long, and it's just awesome. Um, but yeah, the Punisher. When I'm looking at the Punisher and trying to determine who's better, John Bernthal clearly was made for this character. He's an actual badass. Like he boxed in Russia, and he's a tough human being in general, and he's just like fits that perfectly. He plays that tough guy to a T. But Tom Jane, when he the movie was made in as to be an inspiration or kind of made after westerns, like it was an homage to westerns, and it was supposed to be a modern western. So if you know me, it's gonna be tough to beat that if I'm seeing a western version of the Punisher, and he's got the the leather trench coat and the two pistols, and he's doing duels. Like,
Oh man.
okay, I'm in. And you give him like a six seventies muscle car that's all decked out, and he has like sliding metal bullet guards to like pull down when he's getting in a gunfight. It's so good, but it's obviously a different flavor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I already was convinced when you told me earlier. I just haven't gotten around to watching it, but now it's jumped up to the next movie on the docket, dude. That
It's
sounds
fun.
so sick.
It's fun. But yeah, John Bernthal's character, like work as the Punisher, is really good. He shows kind of the grit and the I don't know, more of a human side than Tom Jane's, and maybe it's because he got way more season and like way more time to play
Yeah.
the character. But you can say Tom Jane's is a little bit more one note because it is like pretty close to after his family is murdered and he's getting his revenge path, and it's kind of like that storyline. So he doesn't really have he's kind of monochromatic in how he's playing that, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, he's just such a great character, the Punisher, and you kind of he's pulled from Mac Bolan and the Executioner series. Like I don't know if I can
Oh.
confirm that. This is just kind of a theory I
Yeah.
hear talked about a lot. Is it's clearly inspired a lot from that. And if you look at Mac Bolan's War Against the Mafia, I believe is that the first one, something
Yeah,
like
that is.
that's called. That that book is super similar to a lot of the early comic books with
Huh.
the Punisher and like the storylines of him going up against the Mafia, um, and it's very similar to the 2004 as far as where they pulled because it's him literally just going to war with the Mafia, and it's a
That's really cool.
good pulp character in the modern age. Right here is the Punisher.
Yeah, he's a good one. He's got the which we haven't really touched on this side of men's adventure fiction as much. You actually just did not too long ago with you posted about Zorro, but there's a whole
Mhm.
side of men's adventure fiction that is kind of like off-color superheroes. Like they're not quite
Yeah.
they're definitely not like superpowers, but they've got some sort of thing that are like their identity is kind of hidden.
Hmm.
They're kind of like vigilante-esque. Definitely a great aspect of men's adventure fiction that we will need to dive into more.
Yeah,
So
great point. Honestly, great point. That is true. Zorro, he toes that line. Punisher, because he's kind of in the MCU now and things like that, gets categorized as just like a superhero. But when my dad watches that movie, he doesn't give one crap about like superhero movies. So he like sees it as just a sweet revenge film and doesn't even recognize that it's like in that superhero world. But like you're saying, he's got the lair and he's got like the war van. He's got a lot of the tropes
yeah,
of
he's got a
a
suit.
superhero.
He's got
Yeah,
the
he's got a suit with a skull. He's got the symbol. He's got his like the Punisher and
yeah.
his name. So one another point I like to bring out with the Punisher though is that he also is emblematic. We already said he's kind of the perfect poster boy for this
Mm-hmm.
um, subgenre, but he's also emblematic of the biggest issue that you see with the lone wolf is that that guy is miserable. That guy looks horribly sad all the time, and
Yeah.
he's not having a good time. And I always like to remind people that like the lone wolf is definitely meant to just be on the page and on the screen, and you can't live your life like that. I think as a kid, a younger individual, as an adolescent, as an edgy, I'm too cool. I wanted
Hmm.
to be a lone wolf, and that is like isolation is definitely a plaguing our generation already. So know that the lone wolf is kind of a myth in and of itself, and it's kind of good on a lot of senses. And we'll touch on that. We'll touch on kind of the positives that this types of characters can bring out within us. But I want to start with that warning of like Punisher kind of shows you how depressing that life is when you're by yourself, wallowing and being a one man army. Don't be lonely. Get into a community. Get friends. Like band together. But brotherhood is better. Just had to point that out.
Yeah, yeah. If you push it too far, it almost becomes like a Sigma male type of character, where it's
Yeah,
like, and Sigma males make a great story, but there's definitely something wrong with them. It's literally the requirement to be a Sigma male is that there's something just a little off, where there may be a little bit of a sociopath. You can't. They kind of toe the line there.
right. American Psycho, Patrick Bateman.
Exactly. Or Drive, the
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Gosling movie, or Taxi Driver.
Yep, and Nightcrawler. A lot of
Yeah,
good ones.
Nightcrawler, prime example. Always just
Ken from Barbie. No,
nice one. Yeah, exactly. Just a little off.
yeah. So don't go too far, okay?
Yeah.
Who do you have for us? Who's your character?
Um, this one is. I'm gonna pitch him. I think it's definitely true, but he kind of toes the line, in my opinion, between being a one man army, but also he seems to do it in a very healthy way, and that's going to be Nathan Drake from Uncharted. In my opinion, he's the pinnacle of men's adventure fiction, like especially the high adventure kind of treasure hunting area. Um,
Yeah,
Definitely lots of inspiration from Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones, I don't know if I would consider him a one man army as much because most of the time he's not just
right.
gunning people down. Nathan Drake, on the other hand, um, because you're playing a 8 to 12 hour video game, you kill tons of people.
Body count.
Yeah, absurd. He's a great character, and usually the stories kind of start off with him on his own, and then he ends up with a teammate, and they kind of work together, and then something either falls through with them, or they get captured, or something like that, and then he's back to being that one man army. And in my opinion, I consider him a one man army because he's completely capable of doing everything that he needs to do. Very rarely is he ever in a situation where someone has to come in and save the day for him. He is always the one who's like he's that true kind of hero where he's always ready. He's always got everything covered. Um, Phenomenal character. Awesome games if you haven't played them. The toughest thing about Nathan Drake is that since he is a video game character, not as many people know about him. And then the
Right.
people that do know about him, who aren't gamers, only know about him from the Tom Holland movie, which I don't hate the Tom Holland movie. It's a fine movie, but it hasn't gotten to the heart of the character yet. The the end scene looked pretty promising for it going forward. So if that movie is just a prequel kind of thing where it sets him up as the hero that he becomes, I have a lot of faith in it. So it could be good. But Nathan Drake in the video games is awesome. I love that dude.
Yeah, that is my introduction to the character. My only knowledge of him at this moment is from that. Well, and the short you showed me, the comic, the live action, or not the live action, but
Yeah,
the
the motion comic.
motion comic. That's the word. Thank
Definitely.
you.
I will link it in the description. You guys should totally watch it. If you've never seen any Uncharted games or done anything like that, you should watch this. It's called Uncharted The Eye of Indra, and it's voice acted by all the actors that do the game, but then they have these sick, very pulp
Yeah,
art.
great art. Great art.
So good. And that's. Here, go ahead and continue what you're saying, and then I'll
No,
kind of
you
circle
go
back.
ahead.
Uh,
You keep going. I'll come back to mine.
I think that's the part because watching that, you think like, well, he's starts out working with a girl and a guy, and in the Uncharted games, it's very much the same. He starts out working with people, but that's what's so cool about the Uncharted world is it's got that kind of like, all of a sudden you're teammates, and then all of a sudden you're at each other's throats, and you're now your biggest competition. So Nathan Drake is not necessarily a one man army from the start, but the next thing he knows, he's getting betrayed by the people that he was working with, and he's got to be a one man army now. So it's very cool that they can like I think that's one of the really cool things about that whole kind of like thief heist, treasure hunter kind of aspect of the men's adventure fiction is that you can put your character in a situation where he starts out with someone that he hates, but then they have to band together for the greater good to get through it. And it's kind of like they put their enmity on pause and they're like, we'll work together, but after this, I'm going to kick your ass. Like, I promise you that.
Yeah.
Like, just wait. And I think that can do a really good thing with like building dynamics. Because when you have your main character teaming up with his arch enemy, it's a classic for a reason. I mean,
Yeah.
it works. It can be overdone for sure, but it can work really well when they do it right. But yeah, go ahead. You were saying.
So yeah, the movie is what I know him from most, and I think they even do that. I mean, it's been a while, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they do that in the movie, right? The Mark Wahlberg character and him definitely not friends, definitely
Yeah.
not into each other, and so you get that dynamic, and that's a good point that from the writing aspect too. For those of you who are writers in here, we were talking a little bit earlier about this. Having a character in a novel that you're writing be too much of a one man army can be really challenging and almost limit you thoroughly if you don't have a way to show who that character is, or like, because we learn who people are in novels, especially from seeing how they interact with others,
Mm-hmm.
seeing who they're not, what do they disagree with this person on. That's going to give you something about that individual, how they're talking to them, that we discover them through interaction. So if they're interacting with nobody, just themselves, it gets challenging. Again, it can get repetitive or redundant or boring, and it's tough to do. So when you have those dynamics where you can throw in not only an individual but someone who's feuding it, like someone who's a rival, that's interesting. Like throwing in some spice into that is always important, and I think that's why in uh, the Nathan Drake story, they throw in the Mark Wahlberg character for the film, and for the Punisher, he has in the TV show he has Micro, I think is the character's name, like
Yeah.
the sidekick guy. Like they got it. You have to throw in someone who's kind of like an opposite, so you can see
Mm-hmm.
who the individual is. Um, but yeah, I like what you're saying about him being prepared in all situations. That is the opposite side of the coin. Now we can say that's one of the best aspects of the lone wolf character, is that it really does inspire young men. I can speak for myself, like growing up, like seeing that person who can handle themselves, who can handle business, who can like um, do what needs to be done. That's so inspiring, and it's something to live up to. It's an ideal, and I think these ideals are so important for young men to have heroes to look up to. That's so important. And so when we look at these one man armies, it kind of you know we can put ourselves in their shoes and we can pretend that we're like them, and it can give us something to strive for, and having that motivation to push ourselves to be better. I think that's one of my favorite things about men's adventure fiction, and we're gonna do an episode at some point about getting young readers into the genre, because it's so important to shape and mold the minds of young men to show them what they could be. Oh man.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I would say that that's like a key aspect of the heart of man, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Like, and you're it's part of why men have such a hard time asking for help and have such a hard time being vulnerable, because from a very young age we are taught that like this is super important, that we are able to come in clutch when we're needed to, right? Like, probably my biggest fear is freezing up when the opportunity to be a man of action presents itself. Like, that's terrifying to me. um, and it's only by training and getting help and getting mentorship from other men who know how to be men of action that I can truly like come into my own in that way. It's like we talked about in the first episode. Every man asks, do I have what it takes? And so it's so cool to see, and being a Christian, you see that done so well throughout the whole entire Bible. Is like all the time there's these people who are historic people, and they're written to come in like King David's a perfect aspect. We should do a men's
I was
adventure
gonna
fiction
say
episode
King
about
David came to
King
mind
David and the
immediately.
Mighty Men. Um, it's just so good. So you see this like when the stakes are at their highest, like incredible danger, incredible risk. you want this hero, and that's why we love the lone wolf hero, because you know that he's not gonna fail. He's gonna come in and he's gonna save the day, and it's just so satisfying when you see it all come together, and it hits you right in the heart, and it makes you, like you said, after I see that, it's like, this is what I need to do. I need to train. I need to work hard. I need to know that when everything is against me, I can stand up under it and save those that I love and protect those that I love and be the hero that I'm called to be.
Right. So sorry for the technical difficulties. That's for me punching the laptop with with my men's adventure fiction excitement.
Yes.
And yeah, I think everything you said is perfect. I couldn't agree more. This is why we have this show. Is like this goes deeper than entertainment on the page and entertainment on the screen. This is getting at the heart of man and getting at what kind of feeds and is like nutrition to our soul. Frank Theodat said that this stuff is becoming the modern myth, and I think that's great. I like that's a great term. Coin that and move forward with that. Like these stories, men's adventure fiction is standing tall as modern myth for this next generation to look up to and say, these are my ideals. These are the mythic heroes that I want to rise to. It's not Achilles anymore. It's Zane Carrington. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's these types of things that are coming out now. It's the Punisher in his best aspects, not his worst. And
Mm-hmm.
it's Nathan Drake. Like these are the new stories. These are the new fables. These are the new tales that are important. And so I was mentioning to Nathaniel before we started, Sylvester Stallone says when he writes his films, he likes to think that he is writing mythology. He sees these 80s action films that he worked on and the stuff he does now, like he sees them as myth, and that's kind of an interesting way to look at it. And if you're watching Rocky 4 with that mindset, it's interesting. It changes it. There's a documentary on YouTube of him doing the director's cut of Rocky 4, and he talks about his writing process and how mythology and this idea of putting ideals and fables and lessons into it influenced his process. So it's really interesting watch. You should check that out.
Yeah, that's
Maybe I'll throw
awesome.
it up in the Discord for you guys to check out.
Do you want to tell them we're on to your second character, right?
My second character, yeah.
Which, why were we talking about Sylvester Stallone, Luke?
Oh yeah, uh, Rambo is my
What?
second character. Sorry for the giving you suspense here. We're gonna
um,
talk about Rambo, another quintessential.
yeah, dude, that's what I was just about to say. You got the top two right there. If you look up one man army in the dictionary, it's the Punisher and Rambo. I don't know who could argue with that.
Truly, yeah. Rambo might even surpass Punisher. It's interesting. I mean, it's a tough one.
Yeah,
In the comments, let us know who is more the one man army, because you can make an argument for either. The Punisher really plays up that army. Rambo does too, but Punisher has like the war van and all these types of.
yeah,
He literally leans into that like military ethos. When
right.
I guess a lot of the Rambo storylines, he's not anti-military per
Yeah,
se,
but
but
he's been trying to get
he's
out
on
of
the
it from the
outside. Yeah,
start.
he's on the outside of that. So it's interesting to see. But either way, Rambo is my second pick as the one man army, and I think it goes back to kind of what you were saying with Nathan Drake, where like one of the most inspiring things is just his skill level, like especially with survivalist type skills. I
Yeah,
don't have many of those, and I want to learn them. And he's a character that every time I'm reading about him or seeing him in film, it's like I want to be able to go out in the woods and survive. Like I want to be able to just like live out there, do my thing. If I was pursued into the woods, what can I do? And I think that's why Frozen Wrath and Vipers send characters off into nature, getting pursued or pursuing when they're living off the land, because that's so fascinating to me. And I think Rambo really he portrays kind of primal man to me, and I probably beat that horse too much. Like primal man is so interesting to me. Stripping away society. Look at movies like Straw Dogs when you're talking about when that moment comes when you have to stand up, strip everything away, and now it's time for you to do what like primal man does. What happens? I think that he's one of the most interesting aspects and takes on that, because he's primal man at his most trained. Like he could not be more fit for the job.
yeah, that's a good point. Um, yeah, that's it's. I liked what you were saying is like that he gets chased into the woods, but it's like that's his. that's his domain. They took
Yeah.
it to his home field. I think that's so interesting because that's where he thrives. I mean, how many of the movies are him just like running through the woods shirtless, shooting people with bows and arrows, right? Or running through insert random amount of terrain here, right? Like he
Right.
thrives in the wilderness, and I think that that's also um, something that kind of like dials back to the heart of the man that we were talking about in the first episode too. It's like get outside. Being out in the woods is, even if you don't have any survival skills, how you learn is going out in the woods and looking around. I mean, if you've never been in the woods, you're never going to have a chance to survive in the woods. If you've been in the
Yeah.
woods once or twice, you're going to have more of a chance than someone who never has been before. So get out there, go climb a mountain, go do something like that. Try to
Yeah.
be Rambo. Take your shirt off. Who knows? Maybe it'll work for
Seriously.
you.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit too. Like, don't let the kid within you die. That is so important. Like when I used to watch Rambo, the first thing I'm doing is taking my shirt off and going to the woods and pretending I have a bow.
You got to,
And
dude.
do it within normal limits now as a grown adult. But like, find a way to like keep that spirit, that energetic adventure explorer within you alive. If you just stay trapped in your mind, on your phone, inside, you're limiting yourself and what you can be, and what can kind of feel like. You can feel like a more alive, uh, you know, just ready to go individual. You can feel that fire of life a little bit more if you go and get in touch with nature.
Right, and that's the only way to get that sick tan that Stallone has for all the
True.
movies too. So, um, yeah, Rambo, which is, and that First Blood's your favorite book.
Yeah.
I had just had a moment there trying to get that out, but it makes sense. I mean, Rambo is just so, he's hard to beat. I mean, if you looked up like action hero, he's gonna be in the Google image results, right? There's no way it's
Right.
just one of the pinnacles of action. So
Yeah. There's really not. I mean, he's a short one. There's nothing else to say, right? What else can we? He's the man.
yeah,
We have to mention Rambo, and you can't have a conversation about one man armies without him. But
right. And the
I'm
cool thing
satisfied.
too is like he's got he's good with any weapon too. It's like we were saying, like Nathan Drake's going to be ready for a situation, but Rambo's going to even be more ready.
Mhm.
He's got the M60 machine guns. He's got that sick knife, uh, the bow and arrow. It's like give this man anything, he's going to kill you with it. So yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Dude,
I'm
he
satisfied.
does the Kali fighting sticks or whatever.
Yeah,
In the third one, he's beast. Just
he's a
whatever.
beast. Uh,
Who's your next one?
Another guy who give him anything and he'll kill you is John Wick. Now,
Ooh, nice.
John Wick movies are very good films. It's a little tough because you know that they were written for the sole purpose of giving like the best action sequences they can. So
Stunt guy
this
movies.
the story is really good, but it is very sparse, which is totally fine. And these movies work so well once again because Keanu Reeves buys in and he does so many of the stunts, so many of the choreography things. I think he explained it as he only uses a stunt double when it's like getting thrown or an explosion or something like that. But for almost all of the fights, he's in there doing it. You could argue that he also kind of has help throughout the movies. I know he's got Halle Berry in one, Willem Dafoe in another one. I don't remember if he has any help in two, but kind of throughout the whole entire story, there's people that owe him favors and end up helping him to some degree. But at the end of the day, the man is a machine, and his whole purpose is killing people. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know. When I think in my opinion, he'd be up there with Frank and Rambo because he's a one man army dude. The dude's a machine.
Yeah.
um,
That
yeah,
is he's perfect for the kind of conversations I used to want to have with people all the time, and I would annoy my dad by asking him a million of these types of questions where it's like, who would win, this guy or this guy? So that's honestly a fun thing to throw out to the comment section here, and like what you guys think in the community of if these all these guys, once you hear everyone on the list, who wins in a
in
winner
a
takes
bar
all
fight, right?
tournament, because you could make the argument John Wick. It's pretty, it's tough. These guys are all absolute badasses, but John Wick, like you said, his whole character, his whole story, everything is built off of sweet action scenes and him killing people. Like You
Yeah.
know, there's nothing. I mean, it was a stunt guy movie. It's made for stunt guys from stunt guys. Like, it's a movie
So
about
good.
fights, and he has some of the best. And the gun fu, right, isn't that kind
Oh,
of
dude.
originating with him, and or at least became prominent with him.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it'd be really tough if you give that guy a pistol and a suit. He might be able to beat up at least 90% of this list here because
Yeah, dude, the bulletproof suit's a game changer. You
right, that is
can't.
the game changer.
The scenes where he holds it up as like a little riot shield and he's just shooting
Hmm.
behind it. But
Yeah,
they literally just wrote a perfect world for that to be totally believable. It's so good.
he almost fits into, and I know this gets a little bit off topic here, but he fits into the Mission Impossible world from what I've been watching. Like, I would like
Yeah.
to see him and Ethan Hunt meet up. That'd be kind of cool. I would love to see
I
like a crossover.
I would love that would be so sick. The biggest thing with Ethan Hunt is I feel like those movies are always like very frantic and they
Hmm.
don't always give a ton of time. Like the main focus isn't the fight scenes. The main focus is like always bigger stunts and like a very hectic pace.
Yeah,
Um, so it would be sick to see Ethan Hunt having to go head to head with John Wick. I don't know. That's the problem is like we've seen so much of John Wick doing hand to hand combat and gun fu, and we've seen littler of Ethan doing it, but when he does it, it's immaculate. Like he knows what he's doing, to be
yeah.
sure. So I don't know. We'll have to see. That would be sick.
I don't think Ethan Hunt would be able to beat him in a fist fight, but you know what I think he would do is he would make the terrain and like the environment of that fight so difficult that John Wick wouldn't be able to keep up. Like he would be, you know, off like sliding off of a pyramid or something and like holding
Yeah,
on and like
yeah,
kicking
that's
John
true.
Wick down it and like John Wick would just not be able to reach it because he's not as stunt heavy
Yeah,
as Ethan Hunt. Like Ethan Hunt will do some nuts stuff. Like he'll just absolutely just
yeah.
adrenaline junkie himself into a win.
If we're talking about a parkour chase, Ethan Hunt's got it all day, every
100%.
day. Not a chance.
Nathan
I
Drake though might have a better chance
Oh
against
yeah,
Ethan Hunt,
that's
right?
true.
Right, because he's a
There's a ton of
parkour
parkour.
kind of.
Well, that's if we went on body count alone over who's the ultimate one man army, it's Nathan Drake for sure.
Because of
But
just
that's because
millions of
he's got
bodies.
36, 36 hours of video game at least for you to kill people.
Yeah,
So we can digress with that one. But yeah, dude, you guys should definitely hop in the comments and say who you think the ultimate one man army is, and if you have someone different than these guys we put so far, tell us that too. And then let's hop over. What's number three for you?
all right, so my number three is a little bit of a cop out because it's the man with no name, but I think it's we could also say it's any and every Clint Eastwood character. You could really just lump well
It's
at
just
least back in
Clint
his
Eastwood.
just Clint Eastwood as a human being. Um, at least in his Western era, the 1970s, 60s Western era for him, he was that kind of character in every one of his movies almost just about. The Man with No Name is probably his most famous version of that. So that's the one I'm picking for number three because he embodies a lot of what we talked about before. That rugged individual who's ready and has the skills. He of course can survive in nature because he's part of that era where you had to be really good at survival skills or else you're done for. Um, and also just the cool factor we can add that in here to this one as far as
Yeah.
like giving kids and that young man like the whoa I could be this guy. Like he says some of the coolest lines. He looks sweet. He has that vibe about him with his uh little his
Little
stogies,
Stogie.
and he's got his little stogies and he's just leaned up against some kind of building just smoking looking sweet, and then he goes and guns down like three dudes within a second. It's
In the poncho
classic.
too, dude. The
Yeah,
poncho.
beautiful. Like this guy is a legend. So gotta throw him in there as the one man army. Um, even though again, a little bit of a cop out because every character and even the man with no name, he has partners in every movie. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit on toting the line there.
Yeah. Well, that's we have these characters that have such rich lore behind them, and there's all these other stories that we've never heard of them. And I know for a fact that the man with no name was by himself gunning people down at some point, right? Like
Right.
he's got
Right.
to have been. He's too good not to be. Yeah, that's great. I also think, and I hadn't necessarily thought about it until we talked about him. all of these dudes just have absolute phenomenal style to them, right? Like you
Yeah,
got the poncho and the like kind of Sherpa-y fleece line type of like wool line vest that he wears.
yeah,
John Wick's got the bulletproof suit, which we talked about, classic. Nathan Drake always wears nice like adventure pants and a little bit of a Henley with a shoulder holster.
shoulder
Gotta
holster.
come back to the shoulder holster. Rambo, no shirt. You don't need anything better than that.
Rambo's also the tactical guy. You know what I mean? He's
Yeah.
those kind of. He's got the tactical pants and the boots, and
Yeah.
he's got like the gray shirts and the watch. I'm thinking specifically of Rambo 4 there, where like he has like the
Mm-hmm.
watch and the dark shirt and the tactical
Yeah.
pants and the black boots. It's like that's
Yeah.
pretty
And
sweet
he's
look.
got the red headband most of the
Yeah,
time.
dude.
Oh yeah.
Classic fashion for him. And the Punisher, another tactical guy. If you look at, so okay, two different versions here. You got John Bernthal. He's got the tactical with like the monochromatic gray man esque boots tucked into the black jeans, tucked in shirt with the black jacket, just
Yeah.
looking tactic cool. And then
He
you've
is.
got kind of the neo western superhero swagger of the 2004 version, where he's got
Mm-hmm.
that long black trench coat, and of course you got the white skull coming through, but his is like kind of faded and dark. It's a
Yeah.
good. They all have great iconic looks.
They
Truly
sure do.
important factor there.
Yeah, Man with No Name is a great one. I all three of those movies are so well done, very fun films, and they
Do you
really
have a
kind of.
favorite?
I actually think A Few Dollars More is my favorite. That scene at the end with him and I don't remember what Lee Van Cleef's character's name was in there, but when they go
Mhm.
through the town and they kill like I don't know 15 dudes,
Yeah, that end fight is legit.
so
That is a
good.
great shootout. Almost the one that kind of I think stands above it to me is the open range final shootout. If you've seen that, but that
Uh-uh.
is right up there with me. Kevin Costner's open range has a really intense final shootout. That if you like the end one of A
I'll
Few
have to
Dollars
check that
More,
out.
it's
I'm
it's
surprised
awesome.
I haven't seen Open Range.
It's really good. Great film. Like it's a little bit again. It's Kevin Costner, so it's a little bit longer. Like
Mm-hmm.
Dances with Wolves and Horizon. He likes a long film,
He does
which is
like a
fine.
long film.
But it kind of lulls you into this sense of it being one movie, and then the end is so abrupt and like abrupt in the sense that it's so visceral and real
Yeah.
feeling, and like I don't know if you've seen the Joker, but the film The Joker in the end scene, I won't spoil it in case anyone's not seen it, but there's a moment of violence that happens. It shocked me in the theater. I was like, geez, that felt more real than usual. And that's
Yeah.
kind of the open range ending. I was like, this feels really weird. This
That's
feels really
cool.
real, and I'm freaked out. And I think it's because you get so invested in the characters and everything, and the sound design is really good. Not to side tangent into open range here, but yeah, that is a great film. I think my favorite's got to be the first one, Fistful of Dollars. I love the villain in that movie, and I love
Yeah, he's good.
some of the lines that take place, and kind of just the character intro for Clint Eastwood in
Right.
that. So they're all so good.
They are so good. And then
And there's
the
go
good, the
ahead.
bad, and the ugly has the. I mean, there's no more classic scene than the
Yeah,
ending
it's
scene, right?
legendary. That movie's legendary, and there's this whole expanded universe in novels that I didn't know existed, like novels
What?
upon novels upon novels upon novels. There's one called A Coffin Full of Dollars, and the covers are so sick. I want to track one down so bad.
Well, that's
There's a
really
ton of
cool.
novels about the man with no name. So, like you're saying, there's these stories of man with no name we haven't seen yet, where he might be this one man army on his
Yeah.
own doing things. So, yeah, he's classic, and we have to mention him just because I'm a Western guy. He's kind of one of the originators of this, I think, at least in film, right? I'm sure if you
Mm-hmm.
go into the pulps and go back into literature, there's one man armies before this. Tarzan probably counts or something, but
Yeah. Tarzan is most certainly a one-man army.
yeah, I think he's a absolute Mount Rushmore character for this is a man with no name,
That's a really good
and
one.
or every single Clint Eastwood character.
Yeah.
Overall favorite Clint Eastwood movie? Do you have one of those, or is it still
I
A
think
Few
it
Dollars More?
probably would be. This is a little confession here. I actually have never seen the Dirty Harry movies.
Okay,
Somehow. Um,
yeah.
But I do think it would be For A Few Dollars More. That movie's so good. What about you?
Um, yeah, I'm thinking, it probably would be the Fistful of Dollars, but
Mm-hmm.
I also really like Gran Torino, but I don't think it's my favorite. But I love that movie. I like return to that one a lot. But it's not. I don't think it cannot be my favorite. It's like it's totally different. I like
Yeah.
seeing young Clint Eastwood in that, but I do return to Gran Torino a lot. I really like that movie.
I actually haven't seen that one either. I gotta
It's good.
get my
It's
Clint
good.
Eastwood game up.
Get your
What am
Clint
I
Eastwood
doing?
game on. Get some reps up with Clint Eastwood.
I just need to start like looking a lot madder all the time and
Right? Just scowl.
only saying a
Practice your
couple
scowl.
words, and then I
So
can
so good.
really. Not only will I watch them, I'll feel more like him too. So
Dude, that's actually unlocking another good point of the conversation here is that these one man army guys, with the exception of Nathan Drake for sure, and maybe John Wick, they are like the man with few words. They're like
John Wick's
mysterious.
favorite word is yeah.
Yeah.
That's all he says in the whole
Okay, so maybe
fourth movie.
he counts too. But
um,
Nathan Drake has like a personality, like charisma, and
yeah,
like
he
he
does
talks
for
a
sure.
lot. Kind of like more James Bond or
Yeah,
someone like that who has like a personality. They talk a
yeah,
lot. Not
for
that
sure.
not that Punisher doesn't have, but you guys know what I'm saying. He doesn't sit there and conversate with a lot of people. He's
Yeah.
not a great conversationalist. You get him on a podcast, he's just gonna. And he just, what'd you say? I couldn't really understand that. He's just, I can't. I'm done. I don't know.
Yeah, that's very true. They
So yeah,
all are very
mysterious.
stoic. Yeah, mysterious is another good one. Uh, it's cool to have seen your three one man armies because I want a little close to home with my one man
Oh
army
no.
final guy. We got Hunter Moss, man.
Oh, dude, thank you. I appreciate that shout out. Putting it next to the man with no name. That's insane.
Well, it makes
Yeah.
sense. I mean, Hunter Moss kind of covers all the bases of the three characters that you got. You got Frank Castle, the Punisher, going on a revenge kick because his
Yeah.
family died. I don't know, sounds a little familiar.
Right.
And then you got Rambo, absolute stud of a man, peak physical conditioning, and he knows how to use every weapon perfectly. And then you got a cowboy flair to it with the man with no name. It's all coming together in my mind. I
Yeah.
think
You're.
Hunter Moss. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say you're making me blush, man. You can't do this to me.
No, dude, it's a great book. If you guys haven't read Vipers and Red Rocks, definitely check it out. I also, like we've talked about before, had the opportunity to get to kind of bring him to life. Obviously, not as perfect as your vision is in the book, but I had a lot of fun doing that. And I think he does kind of embody all of these things that we've been talking about. But he also does it in a healthy way, right? Throughout the book, he's got his friend Radigan, right?
Hmm.
I You talked about the book Radigan in the podcast comments a
Yeah.
couple of days ago, and I was like, "Wait a minute, isn't that the name of the guy in the book?" And then I
Yep.
was worried I was going to get it wrong, and it wasn't actually his name, but it makes sense. Another nod there to Louis
Yeah.
L'Amour.
There are a
Uh,
bunch of nods in there.
but yeah, there you go. So he has a little bit of a grounding. He does kind of, and this kind of like gets to the heart of what you were talking about earlier in the book, or earlier in the podcast. This book kind of shows you what can happen if you do go too far into the lone wolf and you start relying too much on yourself and you start kind of losing touch with the things that ground us as men, as humans. What did you say earlier? Brotherhood is better?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
dude. 100%
that's
true.
that's definitely what I wanted to do with Hunter Moss. Is one, not only it was a love letter to the modern western, it's a love letter to all these characters that mean so much. There's an Instagram post you can find on my page where it's a carousel of all the characters that went into making Hunter and like shaped him. And Rambo's on there, Punisher's on there, Man with No Name is not on there, but it's Clint Eastwood. It's him as Outlaw Josie Wales.
Oh,
That
yeah, there you
character
go.
is
Perfect.
connected to the story a lot. And then Beckett from the film Sniper, and then the Apache character, I believe he's an Apache from the Magnificent Seven remake.
Oh, yeah.
Just particularly for his bow and arrow and fight scene is so sick.
Yeah,
So
that
like
guy's
those
sick.
guys kind of all came together. But you're right. I mean, that the story was trying to touch on what I'm saying here because I'm a really big believer in it. Is that men have this kind of tendency or this want, maybe it's ego, whatever it is, that we want to be alone. We want to do everything by ourselves. We want to be the ultimate self-reliant guy, which is great, and we should live up to that. But you have to be able to ask for help. You have to be able to be vulnerable. You have to be able to reach out and have that community and have that grounding and have that touch point and have the ability to say, I don't know what I'm doing here, I need help, or like I'm really struggling, I need to talk.
Right.
Like, and that's where Hunter, I want him to show that, like, well, what happens if you, like you said, if you go too far into, no, I can do this, I got this, I don't need anybody, and you lose touch with humanity, you get too far into primal, you get too far into almost sigma male territory, like you were saying earlier. That can be a problem, and our humanity does come from our community and our connections with people, and connection is ultimately, yeah, what's going to save you as a person, and what saves Hunter is like it's going to come down to connection.
And that was something too that was very poignant about Vipers was you really pushed home, at least to me. I don't know, other people could have read this. You can sound off in the comments if you agree. Pushed home to me the thought of like this path of revenge is now costing him other people, like to some degree. There's a scene. No, I don't want to spoil anything in the book, but there's a scene where it really kind of like you start asking like, man, is he responsible for all that's happening now? Because he's been so like single-minded on this way that it has to be. It's like, but is there another way? And that's such a good aspect to the book too. It's like, and that's why I think he does a really good job of bringing the best aspects of the lone wolf character, the one-man army, because he does go in full one-man army, but then at the end he realizes that maybe he needs to course correct a little bit, and it doesn't have to be one-man army all the time. Like obviously you can, there are times, and part of the reason that this is a trope in movies is there's times when being worried about protecting other people in the book or in the movie is more dangerous and more detrimental to you. Like, I need to go in alone and do this. That's a good reason for doing it. Like, if I'm worried about protecting my partner or my side character, I'm not going to be able to focus fully on killing all 195 bad guys in the stairwell scene I'm about to have, which is going to be peak cinema. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, sometimes there's going to be one guy at the end who's going to get you, and you need to have a brother have your back the whole entire time. And that's kind of what it also is, like a build-up of, we may have times where we do have to be a one-man army, but only by having brothers and fathers and mentors in our lives that have built us up into this kind of, I don't want to, when I say Man of Steel, I'm not talking about like Superman, but like we've been forged and we've been hardened into something that's not going to break. It's going to push through and actually succeed. And it's not because Nathaniel Hummel did that by himself, not because Luke did that by himself. It's because there were so many people that we allowed ourselves to be influenced by and mentored by and trained by that made us the man that we are today. And that gave us the strength that we needed to push through in the thick of it, you know?
Get me fired up, sir. That was a great speech. Whoa. Nathaniel Hummel bringing it on the Men's Adventure Fiction podcast this week.
Thanks, brother.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add to that. I was thinking like, okay, what could I add? I can't. That was great. That was perfect. That was awesome way to cap this thing off, man. Whoa. Thank you for that.
Well,
that was cool.
And
got me fired up.
That's also just to say, like, we are here about men's adventure fiction, but we're also here, we're putting the men in men's adventure fiction, right? Like we have to band together. I mean, you're a mental health dude. Like, this is what it's all about. Like, we got to have each other's back. You got to have friends, and hopefully, maybe you don't have any friends. Maybe you somehow found this podcast. We talk about it all the time. My DMs are wide open. Hop in there, talk to me. I'll be your friend. I wanna help you in any way that I can, because in a couple weeks I'm gonna need help, right? Like we got each other's back. It's what it's all about.
And I heard this piece of advice that I guess I'll leave off on. It can be my last bit. Is that it was a way of framing asking for help, and how sometimes we see that as, well, if I ask for help, then I'm saying that there's something wrong with me, that I can't do this, and that I'm deficient in some way. But it's actually a compliment to the other person. And I was like, that's a super cool way to think about that. If I say, Nathaniel, I cannot figure out how to write this action scene. It's not saying, oh, look a terrible writer I am. It's, Nathaniel, I trust you. You're such a good writer. Can you help me write this? It's a compliment to that person. And they're going to take that way, and that's helpful. So don't see asking for help, reaching out as like, oh, I'm weak. I'm not this one-man army. I'm not Clint Eastwood. I'm just finding, like you said, mentors and brothers who can lift me up and make me better. We need people to drag us up the hill of life, is how I always think about it. If you're doing that yourself, it's going to take you much more effort. You might fall. Like, there's too many risks if you don't have somebody that can grab your hand and pull you up.
Yeah.
Just don't wear a glove because you don't want to be from Cliffhanger with Stallone and just slip in. So
Yeah, there you go.
without a glove, climb up. That's the advice.
Yeah, man. Amen. I can't agree more.
Piece of gear time?
Yeah,
Piece of gear?
let's do it. Let's jump right into some gear.
All right. I'll start off. I'm going to go with the cheap Polaroid camera.
Nice.
Get one of these because we're always taking pictures on our phone, which is great. But how often do you actually go and like process those and get those at CVS? You could, but it's a lot of steps and a lot of effort. And it's nice to just have some moments to capture and keep. And they're kind of like artifacts, that people are going to want. Maybe your son's going to want in the future or something like that. Your daughter might want to see in the future, and they're not going to like scroll through your old phone from 2024. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
true.
they're going to flip through photos, and so getting back to a Polaroid that can print out a real photo is important. And men's adventure fiction wise, you can take these on adventures and take pictures of different really cool landmarks that you just climbed up to
Yeah.
and you might not see again, that kind of stuff. So
Or
good. Or if you're Nathan Drake, go ahead.
yeah, you take it away. That's exactly what I was.
I was just gonna say, if you're Nathan Drake, you got to take clues and take photos of the different maps that you've found that you shouldn't be seeing, and the different relics that you might want to be selling.
Yeah, that was actually been reading One Man's Treasure by Terrence Lehue. Little shout out. Sick book so far. I think I'm 8-ish chapters in. He actually talked about that in one of the scenes. The one guy was trying to get a map back, and the other character was like, "If the map was so important to you, you should have taken a picture of it." I was like, "Oh yeah, why isn't Nathan Drake taking pictures of his maps before he loses them?"
Right.
And that's why you need a Polaroid. Full circle. There we go.
Absolutely.
Mine is.
What do you have for us?
A bandana.
Underrated piece of gear.
Did I go red because I can tie it up here and get my Rambo Sylvester Stallone?
Look at that. Now you have become the ultimate one-man army.
I got to take my
That
shirt off
one
first.
slick move.
Bandana. A bandana is a great piece of gear. For one, we've got a pretty long list of gear going on so far. You could always wrap all your gear up in this bandana and tie it on into a little bindle and put it on your stick and go for the full hobo mode. Two, I don't use it to blow my nose and keep it in my pocket because that's kind of gross. But I do use it to I've got a almost 2-year-old daughter. She gets her hands in all sorts of food all the time. And now she comes over to me and she holds her hands out, and it's because she wants a bandana. Another great use for this, if you're going on a hike or you're working a hot job and you've got one of these on you and you have enough water, don't waste precious resources to wet your bandana to keep you cool. But if you have enough water for it, soak this thing in some water, wrap it around your neck, and you're good to go. Also, it's a staple for cowboys for a reason, because you got it around your neck for the trail rides to block the dust. Or
bank robberies.
Or rob a bank. There you go. That's my pitch for a bandana. I've given only half the uses of a bandana.
Honestly, it is a versatile piece of gear, man. That is so true. And you can do so many things with it. Going back to the fashion aspect, you can get the little tie going on, so you could be Firewalker Chuck Norris, or you could go with the mask bandana version and be like Louis L'Amour Bandit. There's a lot you could do. The headband, you could be like Rambo or the guys from the Warriors,
right? Or if you get shot, you could make a little quick battlefield. What's that thing that you put on you that keeps you from bleeding?
Tourniquet?
Yeah, battlefield tourniquet. Just get a little stick and you probably twist that bad boy real tight.
Absolutely.
If by the end of this episode you don't have a bandana, we have failed you.
Oh, man.
Yeah, there you go. Bandanas.
This was fun.
We digress.
So fun.
All right.
That was another great episode right there. I like this. It's so much fun, guys. I mean, I hope you're having as much fun as us. If not, we just look kind of silly laughing about bandanas by ourselves. But I appreciate every single one of you watching and being a part of this with us. And we definitely need to know who's going to win this fight.
Yeah.
Punisher, Man with No Name, Rambo, Nathan Drake, John Wick, and I'm missing one.
Hunter Moss.
Hunter Moss,
Closest
my
one to
guy.
home.
I feel like my guy would definitely get roundhouse by John Wick.
Has he
I
already
would not
shot
know
him
what
with
to
a
do
bow
with
and
it.
arrow, though?
Hopefully,
That
I
he
hope
made from the sinew of a deer that he killed?
I hope,
I
I
don't
hope he was
know.
able to pull that off. But if the suit can block bullets, he might be able to block his
He's not wearing a suit on his head.
neck shot.
Now, also, pop in, and I'm sure we missed a couple good. I don't know that these.
True.
I'll admit it. My first two were a little low on the top 10 of the one man army. I feel pretty good about them, but I'm sure that they're not like the number one picks. So sound off with other one man armies, either in the comments or hop into the Discord and start a fight with us. That would be a little
Yeah.
exciting. Like do it. Also, pitch for the Discord. We talk about gear all the time. Every episode we end with gear. We have a gear section in the Discord. Hop in there. Show us what your EDC is. Show us what piece of gear you can't go without. That's what it's all about.
So fun. We're learning so much from other individuals sending that. I mean, that a guy sent in the nicest websites ever with the coolest guns you've ever seen in your
Oh
life.
yeah, that was
Incredible.
at Papa John. He posted a whole
Yeah.
entire link of spy Cold War gadgets. Absolutely crazy. What was I really liked they had a tobacco pipe pistol.
Yeah.
I'm gonna work a short story around the punchline being someone shoots him with a tobacco pipe. Spoiler alert for whenever you read it.
Right.
But that's the whole point of the story. What was the one you liked? It was
It was a pocket watch gun, right?
Too
So you got a
good,
pocket watch. Boosh.
you could
Feel
write
like a
a
nice
story.
detective.
Yeah, you could write a story with that. It would be like the punchline could be something about time.
That's okay. That's what we should do on the Discord. Is put in the writer section. Say we should all do a flash fiction short story based on one of these that Papa John put in there.
There you go.
And just make a short story around someone getting shot with one of these unique weapons.
Perfect.
Just throw up some flash fiction.
And the only way you're going to know what the prompt is if you hop in the Discord. So you better get in there. Link is in the
Right.
description. Yeah, man. You got anything you want to leave them with?
Nothing other than thank you. Just thank you for coming along the ride with us. This is so much fun, and can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, it's a blast. Tell us things you want to hear too.
Yeah,
We
any
love-
kind of
love suggestions.
topic ideas. We're always thinking about what to do next. So, one great one, I believe it was Jared Jenkins' idea, was versus, right? This author versus this author.
That's a good one.
This character. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, so maybe I'll fit a little submission for authors to verse against each other into the Discord, and you can hop in there and throw suggestions in for the podcast too. That'll be a good move.
Yeah, Zane Grey versus Louis L'Amour. I know would be a good head-to-head matchup.
Yeah.
Sweet, guys. This is exciting. Let's keep it rolling. See you in the next one.
Yeah. See you next week.
Take care.